How's it, folks? Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, has just released a pretty big patch that addresses quite a lot of issues plaguing a lot of people, but they do go on to mention that this isn't the end. They are going to keep working on the game, they're going to keep adding content, going to keep bug fixing and all that, and they do appreciate any feedback they receive. But before I get into the actual patch notes, I just want to go over the brief mention of the roadmap of what's to come. They are planning to introduce regular patches to address major bugs and performance issues. They are aiming for weekly patches, but they may sometimes come sooner rather than later, and they will continue to work on this for at least months to come. They are also working on enabling mod support, and you can expect that to arrive in about 3 to 4 weeks. They're also working on a special performance version for the Steam Deck. It's currently in development. They don't have a release time for that just yet. And then a huge batch of extra content is coming in patch 1.1. That will include many of the most popular community requests, especially in the Forlorn Swords or the Act 3 region, and they are aiming for an August release for that patch. And they're also exploring other popular requests such as New Game Plus. And then moving on to the actual patch received today, starting off with critical fixes. Fixed one source of crashes. We have another crash fix in progress as well, but it needs more extensive testing before being pushed out to you guys. And then for missing saves on PC, the most common cause for that was due to the game failing to find Steam and loading GOG or fallback saves. Last week they added a pop-up informing you when Steam could not be found. This week they have added a pop-up that asks you whether you want to move saves found in the other folders to your Steam folder automatically, and they recommend that everyone migrate using the pop-up. Items with special effects have also been optimized. This should help with performance for players further in the game or hoarders like myself who have many unique items with them. They fixed a few memory leaks on their UI visuals. A quest in the fields of Kurnacht will no longer permanently block player saving Monstrous Marriage. And then lockpicking now uses the main camera. Significantly decreasing memory footprint is especially important on the console. Moving on to most requested features. After finishing the game, you can now choose to keep playing and explore the world further or to quit. Added kill prevention to some essential NPCs in Kurnacht and Fallen Swords regions. The player will now have to intentionally execute them, preventing accidental murders by the player or other enemies. Because I do know quite a lot of people were mentioning that the weird stalker ended up killing Kavor, the Stone Warden quest giver in the Act 2 region. So it's nice to see that little fix there. They've also prevented enemies from shooting backwards when the player dodges behind them. They've added an option in the fireplace to bring your little pet monster thing back when it's lost. They've changed the visuals for spells such as Impenetrable Shield, Mystic Ward, and Arcane Aegis. And then item weight is now displayed to 2 decimal places for very light items. Otherwise, it remains rounded to 1 decimal place. They've rebalanced upgrading of 53 different weapons so that they gain both damage and improve their special effects. Added item effect gains upon upgrading in handcrafted sets. Rebalanced armor weight loss when upgrading. Fixed player summons sometimes not attacking when outside of player field of view. Fixed player summons not attacking NPCs that are by default non-hostile towards the player, but the player is engaged in combat with them. From now on, summons should be able to exit interiors with you, and they've disabled collisions with player summons outside of combat. And then finally, they've retroactively fixed dialogue flow with Barlow in the quest The Trial. And then moving on to achievements, fixed conditions for the Crown of Ashes achievement / trophy, and fixed conditions for And My Axe achievement / trophy. And then fixed Honor Over Life achievement, which was blocked if the Brothers in Arms quest was completed despite the player not giving all dog tags to the Quartermaster. If you were affected by this bug, now you can come back to the Quartermaster and give him the remaining dog tags despite completing the quest earlier to obtain the Honor Over Life achievement / trophy. Ninian's dog tag is now required for the Brothers in Arms quest. That's the guy from the Island Asylum. And Pate's dog tag is not required anymore for the Honor Over Life achievement. And then moving on to audio fixes, they fixed the Giant Sentinel audio volume levels. They fixed the sounds of Valkyrian's Eldritch Reaver, which is guarding the Pict's hideout in Act 3. Fixed the audio length of one of the rune's lines. Resolved an issue where Scold would begin to speak but immediately stop when approaching the gate in Thoid's village within the Ghost Realm. Weirdness music event updates, improved layer adaptation for dynamic transitions, and there should now be combat music while fighting the boss in Sagramore Castle. Moving on to text and voiceovers, they've added multiple missing voiceovers. For the Japanese text, they've added another big batch of missing Japanese localizations for dialogues focused on Forlorn Swords. That should cover probably 99% of the missing dialogues. Any that are still left will be added soon. They have fixed descriptions of several items: Great Mistake, Chatterblade Fragments, Heiko's Crumble, Old Steel Fan, and Hollow Call. Fixed Absorption Spell description to properly state Mana Shield as a percentage value. Fixed Spell Siphon Talent description, and added description of Skull Knight's Blade Sword. Moving on to technical. Fixed an edge case that prevented all hero attacks from happening. Most often happened on fast travel from the bonfire to a different map. Swimming in the ocean should now take waves into consideration. Fixed an issue where some enemies could disappear at certain angles after death. They fixed an issue that prevented players from attacking after switching loadouts while lumbering. The sometimes missing visual effects on player hands when wielding magic should always be visible now. Fixed controller vibrations breaking in some cases. Fixed various two-handed axes not properly registering heavy attacks on lumbering spots. Now item tooltips now accurately reflect player stats when requirements aren't met, making stat comparisons easier in shops, crafting relics and upgrades. Resolved performance issues on PlayStation 5 in Dungeon Galahad. Added 2 new debug console commands. A fix for the infinite selling of an item will land in the next patch, so bold your piles of gold and items before then. You can always use mods if you really want to have infinite amounts of any item. Moving on to gameplay. Added Maragast helmet recipe to Uko's shop. Fixed arcane mace item mana cost. Fixed stat increases when upgrading certain armors, specifically the Alyssa set, Festering set, Flay Drowner set, and Spell Slinger set. Increased effects of individual parts of the Archdruid set. Fixed Gem of Dodge not properly decreasing dash cooldown. Fixed reusable resources talent sometimes duplicated all of the currently held ethereal cobwebs. Fixed Galahad's mace sometimes not applying burn on hit. Daedry's chest can no longer be opened with a lockpick. Changed Arnulf's loot in Smuggler's Bay. Sour herring and cheese no longer decreases the encumbrance limit when eating. Added a player's room to the Children of Morrigan hideout. Fixed weight-bound spell affecting hero summons. Buffed balls in Sagramore Castle. Fixed Heikor's crumble description and effects. Updated the Tarpisa projectile collision. Fixed projectiles made by Scourge of the Seas and Tarpisa occasionally not hitting enemies. Rebalanced and fixed Bear's Claw to be in line with other items of its tier. Fixed Severing Ray, sometimes using light cast logic when being heavy casted. Giant's Club is no longer a usable weapon. And then miscellaneous changes. Frost grots are now considered animals. Moved the location of copper ore in the Ulfur village. Fixed a diggable chest in the Gunvalda village. The little pet monster will now be more aligned with the ground it's standing on. The campfire mistakenly affected the player's total weight, not anymore. Improved level up notification. Improved quest notification. Fixed interaction with the alchemy station in the Tomb of the Good Druid. Fixed an issue where a player could fall outside the water in one of the Kurnacht rivers. Journal was not counting summon skills. Fixed bonfires in Kurnacht. Fixed weird stone mining in Kurnacht dungeons. Moving on to visual changes. Human summons are wearing proper summon markings on their clothes. Blind status visual effects rework. Fixed missing lip movement for some speaking characters. Updated Four Dweller, Remor Mage and White Attack visual effects to better represent their actual area of effect. Fixed visual effect Charge Explosion on Snail. Fixed Distortion Y offset on Bonfires. Fixed Mask Layer of Bonfire. Guards in Kuanacht will now wear helmets. Dark clouds are no longer visible in Dungeon Frigg. Fixed color issues in the effects Flickerbolt, Thunderlash, and Stormpiercer. Updated visual effects for the Mistbearer boss fight. Additional visual effects AoE for Archmage and White enemies. Fixed bounds in visual effects Floating Snow. Fixed bounds in visual effects Companion Light. Fix a bug with the elevator chain in Corrupted Temple. Blocked unused doors with boards in the horns of the South Castle. Fixed trees placed in the wrong places in Horn of Swords and Forlorn. Ghosts with hair should render correctly after game load. Fix issue where wheat was generated underwater in Kuanacht. Add in missing depth fade card under the ladder in Brock. Killing planes have been added to high places in Sagramore Castle, and the rock embedded in the floor in the underground section has been removed. Visual effects Heart of the Plague visibility of the debris layer. Fixed a floor gap near the portal in Prologue Jail. Fix the issue with the furnace clipping through the floor in the player's house in Kuanacht. Improve the snow explosion effect used in Cold Magic. Updated visual effects for Tidepiercer / Explosion. Updated the visual in the Weird Spawn Dead event. Tidepiercer curtains fix. Drain of Vigor visual update. Projectile trails tweaks. Added visual effects to signal ore acquisition when destroying it. Tweak visual effects when activating souls in the resurrection room. Control's beard now moves when he talks. Updated Gaither's appearance. Alpha tribesfolk NPCs now wear helmets. Fixed floating coins and removed objects located outside the map in the Dungeon Crypt small level. And then finally, moving on to quests. Be warned, there are possible spoilers in this part of the patch notes. Starting off with the main quest, Yorith will no longer die after 7 hours in game if you convince him to leave Horn of Swords. Dialogue fix for some options in Drest's dialogues would end it prematurely, blocking further progress. Unholy Matrimony can be completed if NPCs are killed before talking to them. Denholm now gives the correct reward for the quest Forging a Path. The player will now be able to ask Askel about Tom only once. The extinction of the weak quest markers should correctly target Dolph. Stitch by stitch quest markers and respawning ores fixed. See no evil quest markers fixed. Fixed NPCs Abnar's dialogue lines. Divided we fall and Arthur's crown interactions and non-linear flow improved. The old letter should be found only in one specific place. A Carnation to Remember can be finished after finishing other quests. Blade in the Shadows can be completed if you decide to collect the bounty before talking to the NPC. Fixed Deep Calleth Upon Deep quest. The chest will no longer stay in the inventory. Fixed dialogue flow for quest The Weight of Honor. Petition the Lord quest should correctly lead the player. Cuckoo's Egg failed task can lead to failing a quest. Over My Dead Bodies consequences. The Silent Burden quest should give rewards and its progression should be more straightforward. Denholm will now correctly pay the player for his silence in the quest Burdening Letter. The player will no longer be able to continuously speak with Brother Vitus about abortion. Removed some incorrect dialogue from Lil. Fixed an issue where the player could not lie to Rigby when delivering his book. Fixed Ara's dialogues after she returns home. Fixed an issue where the player couldn't progress the Stone Warden's questline if they sold Kavor's amulet. The recipe will be restored to players who lost it upon entering the Forlorn Swords. Fixed a bug where exiting the conversation with Rob before asking about his grandfather would block progress. The Alchemist's questline can be continued after killing Dolph by reading his research, and in Sweet Dreams the Nest portal should now be easier to interact with. And that's it for patch 1.03. Pretty beefy patch with some significant bug fixes, and I'm pleased to see that they are planning to work on weekly patches. And on top of all that, they announced that they have sold over 450,000 copies of Tainted Grail, so that's also pretty cool. Please consider hitting that like button and or subscribing, really help this video out. Otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic day. Take care and cheers for now.